And so I think that's the key, to listen, to take in all of this wonderful, amazing information out there, but to really go within and perhaps just use those tools so that you can come to know exactly who you are. And I'm going to say it again, which is divine, powerful light in this universe.
People are getting super comfy. I'm noticing people watching from bed, and I'm super jealous. Actually, to be honest, my bed is actually right there, so I could broadcast from my bed if I wanted to. Let's go ahead and start officially. Welcome everybody to Great Life, Greater Impact. It's so nice to see all of your faces and to see you guys joining. Welcome to Zion. I feel like this is a little Zion cell, like the beginning phase of Zion. You know, the prophecy biblically is that Zion will cover the entire earth, but it will start out in these tiny little cells, little pockets of light communities, and these people will share their light to the degree that it will network out and cover the entire earth. And I look forward to that day when the earth is covered with little communities like the one that we have formed here. If you feel like you're getting benefit from these classes, please do like and share and subscribe, and send it out to people that you think will benefit from having these conversations, or at least listening in. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of things. I had a really hard time coming up with a topic for today because there was no topic that came. And I wrestled all day yesterday, and then finally Anne called me in the afternoon, and she's like, "Hey, well, we could just jump on and have a discussion." And I was like, "Okay, perfect. That's exactly where I feel the Spirit is guiding us to go, is to just open up having discussion, but to bring it into a little bit more of a laser focused sense. I do want us to talk, Anne, today about how important it is to know thyself during the process of spiritual awakening, during this great awakening that's happening on the planet. And if you haven't noticed yet that there is a great awakening happening, there are great shifts that are taking place. Reality is changing, constructs are changing, the civilization on the planet is changing, systems are collapsing. And I think that is to prepare the way for something new that is being birthed. And what's new that's being birthed is Zion. Like what's in this small community of people that show up week after week to have these discussions and talk about amazing topics. Anne and I love talking about spiritual awakening. We love talking about knowing thyself and the importance of that. And so what I want to pose a question first before you and I even get started in discussing some things. And as you guys well know, Anne is a channeler. Most of you are. I know that I am as well. All human beings have this ability. And so when you are willing to tap into that ability and hone it and develop it and learn from it, then really great things can happen. So I'm really hoping that our discussions here will encourage each and every one of you to tap into your own gifts and abilities and talents spiritually as you step in to yourself too. So my question that I want to pose at the beginning of this class is why? Why is it so important that we know ourselves? And how has the journey of knowing yourself, especially spiritually, how has that impacted your spiritual awakening? Has it opened your eyes to new things? Has it allowed you to see the world in a new light? So why is that important? How has that impacted you? Those are my two questions. Would love to hear your perspectives, your experiences as you've been growing in the expansion of your consciousness and your spirituality. I try to use the various different terminology that you guys will relate with the most. so that you can feel comfortable and safe in having these discussions. And again, as always, my disclaimer at the beginning is we're not your source of truth. We are not your gurus or uh what is a better word for that? We're not the end all be all of truth. There are many different vantage points and perspectives that can be given and looked at and received just by virtue of the fact that there's over 7 billion people on this planet. There are also over 7 billion different timelines and perspectives and trajectories being experienced and played out all at the same time. So again, you got to go within, you've got to check in, you've got to go to your source and discover for you how truth resonates in your body, because that's on you. But we're here to provide a safe space where we can talk about things that you don't normally get to talk about in family, in religion, in society, in work. There's rare opportunities to talk about some of these deeper subjects out in the world today. And so hopefully this is a safe place where you can feel open enough to discuss things, share things, and grow from our conversations. So with that being said, I see no one has really responded yet. So I'm going to repeat those two questions. And then I'm going to ask them to you. Number one, why is it important to know thyself, to know yourself spiritually as a spiritual eternal being? And number two, how has knowing that impacted your life? So, Anne, let me go ahead and pin you. I would love to hear your perspective.
So before I answer and respond to that, I'm just loving all these pillows and beds, and I love this, love this. Thank you guys for being so comfortable with us. So interestingly enough, before I jumped on here, I happened to look over and all these notes that I'd taken at some point about know thyself and the words I am. And so what I want to share about the importance of knowing yourself is that for me, all the connections that I have, whether it's with Jesus or Saint Germain or Mother Mary, and by the way, we all have those connections. We all have those connections because, again, we are part of this universe. We are part of God. God is a part of us. That means we have access to that universal mind. And all the stuff that Janet and I talk about or other people talk about, you all have access to that. And so the importance of knowing thyself is the message that comes through from the spiritual realms, from Jesus. It's know thyself, because when we become empowered and we know ourselves, then we can powerfully be guided and have access to everything in this universe. But it all begins with you.
Yeah.
It all begins with you. I'm always reminded of, the story we tell about on the airplane. If something happens, first you put your mask on before you even help your children, right? And that analogy reminds me of the importance of knowing who we are. Mm-hmm. So I think today, as we go back and forth with discussion, and hopefully people will jump in too, that we can talk more about the ways that we can come to know ourselves as we walk our path in this life, right?
Yeah, I would love that. I see that Lisa has a comment. Go ahead, Lisa.
So, I don't know that this isn't necessarily answering the question, just some observation within myself. Like in this coming to know ourselves, like it's been so great to have the focus last year of sovereignty.
Yeah.
And, trying to dial in and really wondering, who am I? And I can't help but wonder, like, so much of the things we do aren't necessarily who we are, but just how much programming has been a part of my life. Mm-hmm. And just coming to an awareness of that is huge. And then trying to like deprogram and just that, who am I? Like those, like what you did last week with I can't remember exactly what it was called, the human design is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
How that unveils more, or there's there's different modalities, or I don't know, different types of tools that people can use to come to learn more about themselves. And anyway, just thanks for your part in doing that. And I can't remember, you'll probably be able to say the quote if I start it, but something like, to know God is to know thyself, or to know yourself is to, you have to know yourself to know God, or something to that effect.
Yeah, well, Joseph Smith said that if men who cannot comprehend the nature of God will never understand themselves.
Yeah.
And vice versa. I think it starts with self.
I
Yeah.
just want to respond, Lisa. That was beautiful. And you're right. To know thyself is to know God, and vice versa. Absolutely true. But when you said, you ask yourself, who am I? What do you come up with?
Well, I feel like all of us are offspring of God. And, as you learn about, first of all, you guys can cut me off if I get off on tangents. You can cut me off at any time. But like there's the human design, or like natal records, and like when you're born, exact time, like how that has such an influence on maybe your characteristics or personalities, or the way you respond in your life. It's really interesting because that's left to when we entered this mortality. But there's something even further back than that of who we are.
So the reason
I guess that we bring with us,
Mm-hmm.
on top of maybe the timing of our birth and the influence that has on us.
The reason I asked you that question, Lisa, was because you talked about deprogramming. And for so many of us, we've had these programs forever, right? From the time we were born, maybe even before. And yes, I feel like we are in this journey in this current lifetime to deprogram. In other words, to release all the beliefs and the patterns and everything that has been pounded within us. And so whenever I ask the question, who am I? It's like I begin to peel away the layers of what I was told, of what I've come to believe, all the patterns and behaviors, everything that I was fed. And what I am left with, for lack of a better description, is divine light. For me, I call it Christ consciousness, so we all have different words for it. But I think the analogy and the way, because I'm very visual, that I like to respond to that question, who am I, is to first peel away the layers of everything you've ever been taught. And then you can drop down into who you are, which is one with God, right?
Yeah, it's more of an experience than it is an actual doing. Often when you ask people, who are you? They'll say things like, I'm a mother, I'm a teacher, I'm a bus driver, I'm a, whatever it is. And those are all things that you do. Those are all activities that take place. But who we are is experiential. It's like you said, the divine light within us having these experiences in personas, but the persona isn't necessarily you. That's just a 3D physical construct that allows you to interface with this world, but it isn't the sum total of you. It's just an experience that's happening.
Absolutely.
So you could summarize that like we're all light beings because of the Christ within, the divine light.
Yeah.
Is that, I don't know,
I would say that.
a similar way to say it, like Christ consciousness? I mean, that exists regardless of what our cover is, right? That's
Right.
there. That's at our base. It can't be destroyed.
Right.
That's always the constant.
Yeah.
And
Oh, go ahead.
Well, just everything else is, you could say a mask or our 3D experience, or, whether hopefully we can come back to that realization, or through our programming or our life experience, it gets covered up and we're confused and don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Just so as we, I was looking at that last year when you had a lady on. I was just reviewing the book this morning. But as we come to know ourselves, that's probably when we become aligned and our chakras are open. And the worldly design is to block us.
Yeah.
So that we're not. And as we come back to center, then it makes sense to me that we have to be balanced. And that's part of our journey. If we choose to be balanced, then it can help us come back to that center. Okay, I've said enough.
Yeah. No, that was perfect. And I was going to just add one thing there. When I work with my clients, oftentimes I'll teach them how to get centered. I'll teach them how to take their awareness, go within the body, and enter into that stillness that resides within you when you go into your center. And I'll ask people, what does that feel like? Give me adjectives. And people will say, feels like home, it feels peaceful, it feels like love, it feels like light, it feels lighter. And those are all the descriptive words of what you're experiencing when you touch bases with yourself. When you really go within and put awareness on who you actually are as a divine light being, you realize who you are is not a doing. Who you are is an experience. It's a feeling. It's a being.
Mhm.
Okay, so we've got one more comment from another Lisa. Go ahead, Lisa.
Just want to say one quick
Oh,
thing
yeah.
too.
Go ahead.
I call that place a place of no mind, no time.
Yeah.
It just is. And being is the key word right there. It's not about doing or thinking or any of that. It's just being. So
Yes.
beautiful, Lisa. Thank you.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Thank you, the other Lisa. That was really good. So I just wanted to comment on to know thyself. I feel that once you are digging deeper inside of yourself to figure out how to love all of the parts and pieces within your own emotional, mental, spiritual bodies, all the good and the bad things that you think that you are made up of, then once you are able to understand that, maybe you're still trying to love those parts, but as long as you can start on that path of understanding, then you start to see how you can understand people around you that are a mirror to you, and how to love the people around you that you couldn't before, or couldn't see how to do that before, because you didn't want to incorporate all of the good and the bad pieces within your own self, and therefore integrate is a good word. You didn't want to integrate that within your own self before, but once you start to integrate that, you realize that we are not separate. We are becoming one. We are already one. We are, like you said, Janet, once we look inside of ourselves, we are love, we are light, and therefore we can see the other person as who we are, which is the other person very much at that moment. We can find the things that make us similar, and that we can incorporate and integrate and welcome and nurture and heal. And by healing ourselves, I think that is healing others.
Yeah.
Whether they know that we are working on ourselves, or whether they know that we are trying to heal our own walls, that is healing their walls. And so it is just a ripple effect. To know thyself, it is so grand, it's so crazy.
You're talking about oneness.
May I comment on that last thing you said?
Yes.
So I love the way this conversation is going. One person says something and it connects to something else, but it feels like it's all flowing. And so you talk about the ripple effect. And that is something I have personally experienced, in that when I'm very self-reflective, and I think that's very important, because when we keep, pointing at others and pointing at our outer world as to why all these things are happening, when we can just sit in self-reflection, we recognize that we're only experiencing certain things because that's something we need to learn, we need to look at within ourselves. So I always say, when someone will say, "Oh, you look amazing," I always say, "Thank you. But you couldn't recognize that in me if it wasn't already in you."
Mhm.
Right? So that ripple effect you're talking about is the key to expanding our awareness and to recognizing self. I mean, it's this constant reflection, back and forth, right? As we go out into our outer world.
Yeah.
But going back to the power of knowing thyself, that's why I mentioned self-reflection. It's so important to go into stillness, to look at who we are, where we are on our journey, to check in every once in a while and see, if you have grown and moved through certain things. That is the key, I find, because it keeps bringing you closer and closer to who you truly are deep down inside. And so thank you for that, Lisa.
Yeah.
Just wanted to comment
You're
on
welcome.
I see that Brecca is also willing to comment on that. So we've got some great comments coming through. Go ahead, Brecca, and then back to Lisa, who also has another comment, I think. Lisa Ellingsford.
So I so appreciate everybody's comments so far. Something that resonated with me was last week when we did the human design. I found out I was a reflector, which was answered so many questions. So it offered so much insight to my entire life, and validated a lot of things that I felt. But then also, as I was reading it to my mom, she's like, I don't see you that way. She's like, I see you, you're very grounded, you know who you are. And I think sometimes, as I learn more about who I am, I come to recognize that I didn't know before, things that I thought were me, that is actually my connection with God. So, like a thought or a feeling that I have that I just go and do, like I've always just had that innate feeling or thought, and I've just done it. I haven't ever questioned where it's come from. And as I learn more about myself, I'm learning that that is my communication. And and I think it's important to know who we are, so that we can then see and recognize things as they are. It offers more insight to how we communicate with our Father in heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said. Thank you for
So
sharing that.
may I comment on that, Janet, unless you had
Yes.
something you were going to
Yes.
share?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So as you were sharing, Brecca, one of the things I was thinking about is in knowing thyself and really becoming and living in our full power, because we are all very powerful beings. I feel that all these things that we get, like the human design, a birth chart, anyway, a million of things out there. And I think Janet touched on that early. I think they're all just opportunities to perhaps awaken something within us. But the truth of who we are, as long as we don't attach ourselves to every single thing that we notice out there in our world, and we realize that that's just opening up a path for us to really go within and know who we are. That's all they are. They're just tools. All of those things are tools. And the reason I share that is because I was wonderful last week, the class on human design. And so it said specific things about me. But then I checked in with myself and I realized I was a little bit of all of those. I wasn't just one. And so I think that's the key, to listen, to take in all of this wonderful, amazing information out there, but to really go within and perhaps just use those tools.
You said something really interesting early on, Anne, about the universal mind. And I would love to explore that a little bit, because it is something that I noticed in my studies of the 7 Hermetic principles, that everything is mind. The universe is about mentalism, meaning there are many different aspects of truth. There are many different tendrils of the whole, right? And so when you're looking at another human being having their experience in that tendril of truth over there, it's impossible for us to judge that tendril of truth. It is an aspect of truth. It's a piece of truth. It may not be the whole truth. And so to sit and judge that person as being good, bad, right, or wrong is not accurate when it comes to the fact that we're all one. We're all pieces and tendrils of the universal mind. Do you have anything else to add to just the mentalism of the universe?
Sure. So in meditation, this is where everything, because I go into stillness and just so much comes in. And so I always promote meditate, meditate, meditate. And that could be so many various ways that you can do that. Dancing, singing, vacuuming, just going into stillness. But that universal mind concept, just I connected with that a long time ago. And we can put words to all these things. But the bottom line is, Janet, is you're right. It's a being, it's a feeling, it's a knowing. You feel it within your body, you just feel it within your whole being. So I do believe at some point we're going to do away with words. And people are already doing that. I know you and I have done this with each other where, we just look at each other and we make this wonderful connection. So going back to the universal mind, if you want to think of it as those old-fashioned huge computers they had that held all the information, kind of like that. That's the analogy that just came up into my mind. So it's like this universal computer, if you will. Call it God, call it whatever you will. But to take this to another level, together, all of us form that mind, that universal mind. We are that universal mind. And I hope I'm not going too far out into the explanation, but that is my truth. That is what I've experienced, that we are all that universal mind.
Mm-hmm.
So just think about that for a moment. It means that every single person here has the opportunity and the ability to gather whatever information is necessary for their specific journey. Mm-hmm. So if we're all connected to that one universal mind, that one God, if you will, then how can we judge?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so one of the key things I practice, I'm not saying I'm always good at it, is to notice without judgment, to observe without judgment. That's when you are really empowering yourself.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We're all just fractals of the one great light. Mm-hmm. We're all tendrils of it. And so to judge it is to judge self. And so I think that when you look out at the world, all creation, all beings, whether human or not, all creation and everything in the universe, to judge it is to judge yourself. So if you see everything outside of you as a part of you, a part of the whole, you treat people, things, creation very differently when it is you, when they are you.
Those tendrils you talk about, I guess in my mind, I sort of see them as frequencies. Mm-hmm. Right? It's energy and it's a frequency. And more and more and more as we've already shifted. I got to stop saying moving into fifth dimension awareness or energy. We're there. It's happened. It's just that sometimes the physical aspect of us struggles to catch up with, the mental and spiritual. But these frequencies or tendrils, as you call them, that is the way that we can keep journeying out into so many different areas and places and making connections in this universe and bringing back information into our current existence to help support us, right? And again, I'm not stuck on words. You can call it God, you can call it ascended masters, you can call it, hey, I'm just connecting with that universal computer, just like you get on your computer every day and you go, oh, hey, Google, this is what I need to know.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that. And when you go into stillness, that's when you're connecting with the divine, with that energy, with that universal mind, with that God. And so when you ask your question from that place is when you get the answer that is right for you.
Yeah, because all the answers are there because it's a compilation. It's a unity, it's a collection and a collaboration of all thoughts and all ideas and all truth. It is a lot like AI. I mean, it's a lot like artificial intelligence. I think the paradigm or the pattern for artificial intelligence is very similar to the actual, real, literal intelligence that you can tap into. And that's why God has all the answers. That's why all the answers are within. When you go within and seek to connect with God, that's where all the answers are.
So Mike, we're going to get to you in 2 seconds, but I just want to comment on that. This is so fascinating and exciting. Talking about, AI and all of that stuff, which, for the longest time, I'm like, but I have to say that if we use all of that coming from that place of our deep inner connection, then it's going to serve us, right? There's going to be people out there who are going to misuse things always in life. But because there's that one universal mind, that one God mind, if you will, I think about movies that came out years ago that were so prophetic, and that those people who wrote and made those movies were really projecting into the future. And here we are now. I mean, I even think back about, most of you probably don't even know this, but Dick Tracy.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember Dick Tracy? So with the watch. Okay, aren't we all wearing those watches now and talking into our watch and all of that? So where did that come from? It means if you think about that, that was already there in this universal mind, if you will.
Yeah.
And so we can tap into things from the past. We can tap into things from the future. We can tap into anything by connecting with that universal mind. But first, we have to know thyself.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just gonna say that, so this year, which I mean, it's only been a couple weeks, but it seems like it's been a couple years.
I know.
I've really and I hate to use the word judgment because I feel like it kind of has a negative connotation to it. But at the same time, I have very much had to make some judgments this year. And a lot of it is not everybody is on the same frequency. And I've been studying sound frequency a lot lately. And there's so much truth to the fact that when two frequencies, if you take two tuning forks that are the same frequency and you tap them together, they're in harmony. But if you take two tuning forks that aren't the same frequency, it sounds like they just don't work together and stuff. And so I've had some pretty interesting conversations with people that think that I am of the devil because I think a little bit differently. And so I have had to distance myself from a lot of people. And so it's really I just want judgments is not, it's not necessarily a negative thing. And it's perfectly okay to love people from a distance. And I can't let myself be brought down from lower frequencies, and I firmly am stepping into knowing who I am and knowing that I can have, it's funny. So I'm sure I've shared it. I don't know. So on January 2nd, I was arrested. And it was because I refused to give my driver's license and registration to the police officer because I felt what he pulled me over for, I didn't do. And so I got disgruntled. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, like I'm such a bad person because I was arrested. And I was like, man, it was the greatest blessing on earth. And they're like, what are you talking about? You know? And I've just really like, because it allowed me to see who I was. And I was like, this isn't who I am, you know? Like I've
Yeah.
done a lot of change since the previous Mike that I was. And so it's just been very interesting to have these conversations with these people that like think that, oh, this person got arrested, they're a horrible human being. And I'm like, no, 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 like that's not the case, you know. Like God still loves me. If not, I thought it was funny because I was arrested at 10:10 in the morning. And so I looked up the meaning of it, and it straight up says like you're about to step into a spiritual awakening and stuff like that. And so like as soon as I saw that, I just started chuckling and I was like, oh, God has a sense of humor, huh? and and so like it's just weird because like so many people in this world are like so caught up into this box. And like I love, because I love to jump in the box and out of the box, and it's my way of exercise. They're like box jumps, you know, at the gym. And people don't know how to handle me because like I push buttons, but like in a very humble, loving way, kind of thing, you know. Like I was in a class on Sunday, and these people were making some judgments, and I called them out on it, and afterwards they came up and apologized to me. And as we're sitting here having this class, like I really wish I would have been like, what are you apologizing for? Like the only time you really apologize is if you feel like you're in the wrong, you know. Like and so it's just one of those things that it's a struggle having to deprogram yourself. You know, I'm 40 stinking years old, and I was born and raised into a box that having to step out of it now, like, I mean, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
It
But
is.
I'm
It
grateful
is.
for this community, and like it's a struggle because sometimes I just want to go and build a cave in the mountains and run away from the society around me, you know, because it's so hard to, and I'm not trying to say that any of us are better than other people, but to be at a heightened, enlightened state, and you just want to grab everybody by the hand and be like, come follow me, you know, kind of thing. And not in a derogatory manner, but in a loving manner, you know. It's like just let go of all of that hate and all of that emotional negativity that you're putting yourself through, and step into the light and just love. Just it's the greatest four-letter word out there. Love, you know. And so thank you
I
for letting
I
me.
think, Mike, that is the underlying currency of what we're talking about. This spiritual awakening movement, and how the earth is shifting and changing, and how we can access greater levels of intelligence and light, but yet we continue to jump back into boxes. But I think the underlying currency is love. I mean, that is the principle of all principles, and it's what we always come back to. Even though we can expand this conversation and make it very complex, it's always going to come back to what you just said, which is love, and it starts with self-love. And do you have any
Right.
comments on that?
Absolutely. Well, there's so many wonderful things you said, Mike, and I love that box jumping. I love that. But you know, you talk about judgment. Perhaps the word I like to use is becoming the observer, you know, and
Yes.
really working on it. It's not always easy, but I think that's the key. When we can rise above our own selves and become the observer of self, this is when we really learn more about who we are. And this is when we can get more into our center. So perhaps, you know, being more of the observer, noticing. Like I noticed that idiot out there that just, went by and almost caused an accident, but without judgment. And it's something I'm working on. We're all working on, right? It's not easy.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about something that Janet commented about. We make it so complex. The truth is that our lives here, this whole universe, it's very simple. It's all way much more simpler than it's our thinking mind that creates this complexity. And we feel like we have to keep reaching out. It must be mystical. It's these things are only shared with certain people. And we just keep going down that rabbit hole, if you will, of this complexity. But truthfully, and I can share how I like to live my life, that truly brings me joy and peace and love for everyone. And you ready for this? Here are the simple tools. Dance, sing, laugh, notice the beauty in nature around you. I can go down a list of how simple it is. And we're all after love and joy, right? I know all of us are. We want to feel joy every day. And those are the things that we need to do. And I know Lisa Lancaster agrees with me there. Sing, dance, laugh.
She does those things.
Yeah, right. I can tell. But yes, it's not that complicated.
Yeah.
It really is simple. And being a clinical hypnotherapist for over 30 years, I know a lot about this computer as well as the universal computer, if you will. And someone said many, many years ago, some famous athlete, that, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. And then after that, a spiritual person said, the mind is a terrible thing. and so I buy into that. I believe that it obviously serves us as we walk this path. But the more we function from just all the information we've gathered, the more we distance ourselves from the truth of who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So,
and
go ahead.
Something that Mike shared too was he said he was talking about it's really hard to share some of when you start to gain your own inner wisdom and you start to have your eyes opened to greater expanded truth and expanded consciousness, you can't have conversations with other people about some of those things because it's impossible to share wisdom with people who are not ready to hear it. There's a famous quote in it's a Kabbalistic quote in Kabbalism that says, the lips of wisdom are sealed except to those who have ears of understanding.
Beautiful.
And so oftentimes we go back out into our external world and interact with family and friends and our cultures and communities, and we find we have very little to talk about anymore. But I think it's a matter of just being the observer. It's a lot more fun when you let yourself become the observer, meet people where they are, have less judgment for them, and just show up as love in their space.
And that's one of the keys, Janet, to being more at peace in your life, because if we're always working against someone else's frequency, we never get anywhere. And I'm guessing all of us here, our path on our journey is to share love and hope and bring light to others in this world. And in order to do that, we have to meet people where they are, not where we're at. And Mike, trust me, I know that can be tough sometimes because you have all this amazing stuff. You just want to say, here, it's a gift. But we have to meet people where they are so that it resonates with them, so they can accept what we're sharing. So just some food for thought there, Mike. And then one thing I want to comment on too is Jesus was a rebel.
Yeah.
So the fact that you have people
you're in good company
with you, yes, just remember that. And so we need more of that on our planet.
Yeah, we do.
I think Lisa had a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
I have so many things that run through my mind in these conversations. And I was just trying to jot down okay, so when you're talking about universal intelligence or God consciousness, I imagine those could be used synonymously. Is that?
Yeah.
So my understanding, as I've reflected on different things, I thought, oh, that's why muscle testing works or energy work. It's because of that. Would you, am I on the wrong, would you agree that that's along the right path there?
I would agree with that. I think that our bodies are very much what's the word? Our bodies will respond to intelligence, to divine intelligence. And so when we're in the presence of something that resonates with our bodies, then our bodies will be strung to that. When we're in the presence of information that does not resonate, it may not even be true or false, but if it does not resonate with us, then our bodies will be weak to that. So it's really about resonance and frequency.
Okay. And then I was thinking about Jesus too, and this love, like he was the example of that. And just how he could recognize, I guess he was so aware of himself and in his I am, that he could, in his awareness of others, which is an example for us, like, can we be in our I am, and can we recognize where others are? Like, do they speak to, like, what's their love language, or what's their, where, how can we best communicate with them on their level, so that we, I don't know if that means we're meeting them at their frequency, but at least it causes a way of understanding and connection instead of clashing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well, I think that's exactly what Jesus did, what Yeshua did.
That's exactly what we're supposed to do.
I do.
That's our potential. And so that takes, that takes us coming to recognize our I am and knowing ourselves and being in a state of awareness, like Anne just referred to, so that as we interact with those around us, we can be a light to them, connect, and raise them up. And instead of, I think that's a good place to strive for. I think you gals are already there, obviously, because look what you're doing to this community and the things that you share. Anyway, thank you, but there's some observations.
Yeah, go ahead, Anne.
Sorry. I just want to say that you talk about, can I be in that I am, and then meet others where they are. Absolutely, even more so, because when we are understanding and being and living from that I am that I am, then there's an intelligence, there's a wisdom, if you will, that absolutely, even more so, you meet people where they are. But when we're vibrating at a lower frequency, it becomes more difficult to meet people where they are. So when you truly understand and get to know thyself and understand the I am and live from that place, there's a wisdom that is just endless. And I believe that you can absolutely meet people where they are, especially from that place.
From a place of love, because love, honestly, I believe, is the antidote for judgment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Do we have any other? Oh, Lisa.
Just one more. I wasn't going to comment anymore, but it just kept coming to me. Just real quick to dovetail what you were talking about, Anne, like laughing and dancing. So I was watching this amazing, very grounded, ascended guru last night. And they were like, how do you know so much about the past, present, the future, and the spirit realm? And how are you like so grounded while you're so like up there in the ether? And he said, that's easy. I play all the time. He says, I don't focus on all of that spiritual stuff. I focus on the here, the now, and playing every moment I possibly can, because I know that my guides will probably ask me to do something, really hard and crazy that I don't necessarily want to do. And that's going to be painful because you have to go within, and it's painful to go within. And anyway, he said, every moment I possibly get, I try to play with family, with friends, and be here in the moment and grounded and connect in that way. And I was like, that is like the most beneficial piece of information that I could have gathered from that whole conversation. It was like an hour long. And also from this conversation where you said, Anne, to dance, to sing, to play, like all of that is the most important thing that we can do here and now in order to grow, in order to transcend, ascend. He said that is the most important thing you can do. And I was like, oh my goodness, it just connected dots for me.
You know,
Yeah,
Lisa, that reminds me, there are two principles I feel like that play into what you just said. So number one is humor. Humor is a great way to raise your frequency because it'll make you playful. And then gratitude. Gratitude is a really excellent way to raise your frequency. And Anne talked about dancing, being in nature, just showing up in the world. And gratitude is one of the fastest ways to raise your vibrational frequency. And why does it matter that we have a high vibrational frequency? Anne, I'm going to let you answer that.
Wow. Well, talking about the universal mind, making that connection. First of all, knowing thyself is knowing God is knowing thyself. And it's through these high vibrations, through these frequencies, that we can gather the wisdom and the knowledge that is available to all of us, so that we can walk our paths, so that we can live our lives and live our purpose in the way that we're meant to, whether we chose to come here for certain lessons and to, you know, have closure on some of our contracts, whatever the belief is, wherever you are. The point is that knowing thyself, going within, it's like there is a space within. I call it my Christ consciousness. And I start there every morning. I say, thank you, thank you, thank you for another day, for being here. So there's that gratitude. And then I say, what do I need to know today? And then all of a sudden, I close my eyes and I'm on some frequency, some vibration that I come back into self with a knowing, with an understanding of, okay, this is what I need to do today. Yeah. And I know I've shared with Janet and Lisa, I think that some days it'll say nothing. You don't need to know anything. You don't need to do anything. And of course, my logical thinking mind struggles with that. What do you mean? I need to do something. And when I surrender to that doing nothing, that's usually my most powerful times. I journal. So much comes from that, just being and doing nothing. So I don't know if I answered that question or if it flowed into that, but
I think that was it.
Yeah,
it reminds me, you know, we talk in the concepts of spiritual awakening and the great awakening and expanding our consciousness and becoming more spiritually mature, however you want to look at that. Vibrational frequency has to be a part of that conversation because we are vibrational beings. We're made of waves of light and sound and tendrils of that great light and that great sound, which is God. And even Albert Einstein said that the field is the governing agent of the particle. So the field or the vibration at which you choose to resonate with is governing the particles of your body and the particles of your bank account and the particles of your relationships and your external world and your experience. So if you want your world to show up in a different way and your body to show up in a different way, you've got to change that vibrational signature that you're sending out. Would you agree?
You know, that that film I shared with you, Alive Inside, it was just a confirmation for me about how people can be healed through music. And everything I am learning and hearing about and experiencing myself in this new way of being is all about frequencies, and frequency through music, frequency through dancing. I'm listening to the wind outside. I mean, it's just a million ways that we can tap into those frequencies. And so this film I was sharing, they took a lot of people who had dementia and who would sit all day just like this. And when the family put together a list of the music they used to listen to as they were growing up, and they put those headphones on, it's like these people were lifted up and some got up and danced, and it's like they were alive inside. And music, that frequency, reminded them that there's some part of them that was still there. So it's just confirming again and again the importance of tapping into frequency. And I know I've shared this with you guys before, but pretty much every day what's playing in the background on my television is binaural beats, frequencies. Right now downstairs I've got the resonance of the earth. It's called the, I forget what it's called, but anyway, there's a frequency and an energy that comes up from the earth herself. And so I'll play these all day long. And I do believe that just having that stuff in my background is what helps me to stay with joy and to be at peace and to be in that connection, with my higher self.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're down to the last 4 minutes. I think I'm just going to give you the floor, and we don't have any more comments that are coming in at this point, but I'm going to give you the floor. Just either any final thoughts that maybe you have, or just a summary of what you feel like needs to spill out.
Yeah, so what came up is the I am, because we're talking about knowing thyself, right? And so I just want to take a moment and have you guys just take like 2 minutes and close your eyes. And I want you to say what comes up within yourself. So I'll say I am, and then you can inwardly say whatever comes up for you, or you can say it out loud, whatever you like. So I am going to say, I am joy.
I am light and truth. That's what I got.
I am love. I am peace. Thank you, Katie. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I am truth. I am wise. I am intuitive. I am healthy in body, mind, and soul. And just whatever else comes up for you. I am so powerful. So each and every day you can start your day by saying, I am, and choosing the words that come up within you. And so I will end by saying, I am truly, deeply grateful for all of you, for Janet, for this platform, and for this beautiful energy that I always feel from all of you when I'm here. So I am grateful.
Thank you. Me too. Very grateful to be in all of your presence. Thank you for creating this little community of light. Even though we dot the planet, we have people from different countries that watch the replays of this and that join in us in our conversations live. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for doing your inner work. And as always, there will be an extended over on my website, greatlifegreaterimpact.com. I'm going to be doing a live healing session today with our group. Those of you who are subscribers to that website, you get 4 live healing sessions every single Tuesday. We do it an hour after this live broadcast over there. If that's something that you feel like you would benefit from, you can go over there and grab the details. Have a blessed rest of your day, everybody. I wish love and light onto you all. I feel very expanded by this conversation. Thank you, Anne, for being here, for taking the time to share your wisdom and to have this conversation with all of us. Take care, everybody. Mwah. We'll see you in a week. Bye. Hey, everybody, I want to just give a really quick summary and a recap of our powerful discussion that we had with Anne today. One of the reasons why I have these discussions with her is because Anne will receive these powerful downloads. I will receive similar downloads, and then we'll collaborate and come together. Something that really fascinated me before this class even began was I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago where they were talking about the 7 Hermetic principles. Hermeticism comes from the teachings and philosophies and principles of Hermes. And the reason I bring up the 7 Hermetic principles of Hermes is that many people believe that Hermes was a reincarnated version of Thoth, Melchizedek, Enoch, Metatron, Saint Germain, that that these are powerful teachings that have been passed down to us through the generations by very, very ascended beings. So I want to cover the 7 Hermetic principles that I felt like was a big takeaway for me today. And I think it's interesting that a lot of the things that Anne has been learning, downloading from heaven in her meditations each week are some of these very similar principles. I also think it's interesting that Anne has talked to me before about channeling Metatron, Enoch, Saint Germain, and some of these ascended masters, and even tapping into the consciousness, the Christ consciousness. One of her greatest mentors, guides, teachers, facilitators through the veil in her meditations is Jesus Christ. So I'm going to go through these 7 Hermetic principles. I think you're going to find it very fascinating because a lot of these things were things that were touched on in today's discussion. Principle number 1 is mentalism. Everything is the mind, meaning the things that you think about repetitively over and over and over and then align your frequency with, those are the things that will manifest in your outer world. Principle number 2 is the principle of correspondence, meaning everything is connected. Albert Einstein said that the field is the governing agent of the particle. We're all connected. We're all one. We all correspond. When you change your frequency, guess what? It also ripples out into the universe and has a literal effect on my frequency as well. Principle number 3, vibration is everything, and everything is in motion. We talked a little bit about vibration, the laws of vibration, and these principles that govern our spiritual progression and maturity and ascension. And vibration also has to do with resonance and frequency and harmony. And we talked a lot about how to tap into those higher levels of resonance and frequency and harmony. Gratitude, being in nature, having fun, playing, laughing, having a sense of humor, listening to music. All these are all things that can directly influence your resonance and your frequency. Principle number 4, there's duality and polarity. So just like in the laws of physics, with every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. And we call that polarity or duality. So this is a principle of Hermeticism as well. And once you start to understand that there's actually not duality, that everything is one, everything is meant to be what it is, then we lose the need to have to judge everything. Principle number 5, the principle of rhythm and cycles, meaning take it at your own speed. Listen to your own inner self. Listen to the rhythms and the harmony and the beat of your own soul. Your soul is on a very specific trajectory that is for you, and it does not have to match up with everybody else. You don't have to fit yourself into a box. Principle of cause and effect. This goes back to that principle or law of physics that states to every action, there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction. We call that cause and effect. So everything that you do, everything that you choose, every vibration that you choose to be in is going to have a ripple out effect, and it is going to influence the world around you. And lastly, principle number 7 has to do with gender, meaning everything that exists in all of creation has a masculine energy and a feminine energy. And we'll get more into that in future podcasts and discussions, but I wanted to share what the 7 Hermetic principles are and how they relate to this discussion that we had. Next, I'm going to share with you some of my key takeaways from this discussion today. One of the key takeaways that I got from my discussion with Anne today is that everything is connected. Everything is an extension of God. It's an extension of you. And so what you do in the world, the way that you choose, the way that you judge, the way that you project out into the universe, the frequencies that you choose to dial into has a direct effect on the whole rest of the container of the universe. One of the tools that we discussed for how to raise your vibration and step more into your higher self is gratitude. Gratitude's one of the most powerful tools, and anybody can exercise gratitude. Anybody can experience and express gratitude. But when you stand in gratitude, there's there's nothing faster that can raise your vibrational frequency and put you into that state of love faster than gratitude. Gratitude is the antidote for fear, and love is the antidote for self-judgment and judgment of others. Another key takeaway that I feel like I got from this discussion is that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Something that we said in the discussion was that the lips of wisdom are sealed except to those who are ready to hear it. So when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I think an even more powerful idea that goes beyond that is that when the student is really ready, then the teacher will disappear. And because that means you're ready to step into your own autonomy and sovereignty. And that's something we've been talking about. And then lastly, on our journey of seeking to come to know ourselves in all ways, we are an expression of the universe. We are a vibrational expression of the universe, and we can harness that mental energy that puts us into a high vibrational state, which will then influence greatly and even control our external circumstances. Once you understand how to do this, once you understand the power behind that concept, you start to realize that the universe is you. Everything in the universe is a reflection of you, and you have a lot more power to influence and control and create the things that you desire in this universe. We literally have the power to choose our own destiny. And once you understand that, then you can truly choose your own path in this life. That's sovereignty. I hope you guys enjoyed this class as much as I did. Take care.